When you hear the name Capcom, a few franchises probably pop in your head. Mega Man, Street Fighter, Resident Evil, but probably not Power Stone, which is unfortunate, because it is a franchise that Capcom should absolutely spend some time bringing back. It should be no surprise that the King of Fighters would have made an absolutely amazing game here for the Sega Dreamcast. Power Stone was a launch game for Sega's final console, and unlike the sales of the console it was on, it did not disappoint. Power Stone is a 3D arena fighter, then and at the time was often stated to be a 3D Super Smash Bros., and at the time it was a great comparison. Power Stone did originally launch in arcades in Japan in February of 1999, and you can tell just by looking at a few seconds of footage that it definitely has that arcade feel to it. I will say when you first boot up the game, the announcer is not very inspiring, to say the least.
In the 19th century, people are strong believers of superstition and legend. Adventurers seek the world for fortune, glory, and a legendary treasure which has the power to make dreams come true. That treasure is known as the Power Stone.
But once you get past the opening cutscene, you're able to dive into the game and choose from 8 different fighters. Once you get going, you're free to move about the stage and you can pick up a wide variety of weapons to throw or shoot at your opponent. But the goal is to grab 3 gems, or Power Stones that is, and this will allow your character to transform and do way more damage. Every character turns into something pretty cool. Gunrock turns into basically the Thing and can hurl boulders. Falcon gets some armor and can launch missiles. Wang Tang, and yes, that is his actual name, turns into Goku, and while the ideas may not necessarily be original, they are tons of fun. And in fact, they change the nature of the game, not in terms of combat, but in terms of the flow of the fight. As each character starts with 1 stone, during the fight a 3rd will appear, so you'll not only need to grab that one, but you'll also need to knock a stone out of your opponent as well. And when this happens, it creates a mad dash. Because they're so powerful, once you transform, you'll end up playing keep away and trying to avoid attacks, all while trying to secure the stones. The controls, just like Super Smash Bros., are simple. Move the joystick to run in any direction you want, A for jump, B and X for attacks, or to use items, and then Y will do a different combo, which depends on the character, but it's mostly kicking, so it's another attack button, but it's slightly different. And it will also function as a different attack when you are transformed. The shoulder buttons will do your super moves when you are transformed as well, and you will notice there is no blocking. But fortunately, you can use objects around the stage to hide behind when enemies throw weapons at you. You will need to be moving constantly in this game as the stages vary, but are mostly small, which is one of the downsides to the first game. This and the character balance. While the bigger characters are stronger, they are painfully slow. And in Power Stone, speed is everything, so you'll want to stick to the faster characters like Wang Tang. Also, it should be noted that the first game only allows for one-on-one battles, which given the smaller stages is actually a good thing, but it gets immediately improved in Power Stone 2. Released 1 year later, Power Stone 2 is just bigger and better. Now you can play with 4 players on much bigger stages. There's an additional 4 characters to play as well, and an overhauled arcade mode, and a new original mode where you can collect items that you can then use to craft new ones in the item shop. Heck, even the intro video is more inspiring than the first game.
Without warning, a dark cloud fills the sky, and then a huge shadow blankets the entire world with roaring that shakes the entire planet. Suddenly, a mysterious floating castle appears out of nowhere. In the blink of an eye, the Power Stone heroes are caught and transported to the floating castle. What will happen to our heroes? Welcome to the Power Stone world.
And that's not to say the first game is bad or anything. It's an amazing game in its own right, but Power Stone 2 is just that much better. The controls have been simplified even further. Now you only have 1 combo as opposed to 2. Other than that, the controls are exactly the same, but it's the stages that make this game feel more balanced. Making the stages bigger also makes them more open, giving the slower, stronger characters a bit more space to move around, so they're less of a bull in a china shop with nowhere to run. The addition of having 4 characters on a stage as well means you can focus a bit more on collecting the stones, while the others are bunched up fighting. There are also now 7 stones that appear as opposed to the original 3, and with 4 characters, it makes the mad scramble that much more intense. Stages themselves also have a little more character as well. The airship level will break apart and fall down, and then you'll have a section where you're falling and need to grab an umbrella so you avoid taking damage when you fall to the ground. Stages now have turrets or catapults or other obstacles and items you can use even if you don't have a weapon. But that's not to say that the stages are perfect. In the first game, the stages were smaller, but they sort of went with their character. Falcon stage is a London street, Galuda's stage is a saloon, and so it just sort of fits the characters. In Power Stone 2, they can feel kind of random, and they go away from the 19th century theme of the first game. Now you have battleships and an elevator level that leads to an alien, but they are bigger and they change and they do work better for more character. So it does just kind of come down to personal preference as to which of them you prefer. In the arcade mode and original mode, there are even stage bosses that you can battle now, making for a nice change of pace, and makes both worth coming back to, and the replay value doesn't just stop there. By far the biggest addition to Power Stone 2 is the item shop. In the original mode, there will be cards and money that appear on the battlefield. You'll use these and the items you pick up in the mode itself in the item shop to craft new weapons that you can even use at any time if you want if you have a VMU for the Sega Dreamcast. And you can even craft new cosmetic items for your characters to wear. The item crafting is a ton of fun, and there are loads of options and items to mix and create. Some of them make sense. Mix a sword with a magic pole, or also the power pole from Dragon Ball basically, and you'll get a trident. Mix 2 guns together, you get a bigger gun. Things like that. It really makes playing the original mode worthwhile. After Power Stone 2, we would see a port of both games to the PSP in 2006. The PSP version is even displayed in a wider resolution and plays great for the PSP, as the Dreamcast itself only had 1 analog stick, so the controls here match perfectly. But sadly, that was it. Unfortunately, there have been no new Power Stone games since. My guess would be that it just didn't catch on like Capcom had hoped it would. And coming from a company that already has loads of franchises and even loads of fighting game franchises with Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom and Darkstalkers, Power Stone must just not be high up on their list. There was, however, a Power Stone anime. It only lasted a season, and I myself haven't watched it and totally forgot that it was even a thing until I was writing this review, but it's certainly interesting to see that they really went all out on these games, but sadly they just didn't catch on as well as Capcom would have hoped. If anything, I think it's less likely that we'll see a third game anytime soon, but more likely we would see the collection get a Steam port or a Switch or PlayStation Online, Xbox Live port if we were ever to get anything. Even the characters themselves have not crossed into the Marvel vs. Capcom or Capcom vs. SNK series at any point, but at least we can always go back and play these games on the Dreamcast, which if you want to play today, you are looking at around $100 complete for either game, but the PSP collection goes for around that $30 range and you get both games, so that's probably your best bet there.